Hi there. Happy Friday to you. Looks like I'm coming in live. Facebook is giving me the little happy red box, which is a good sign. Always takes a couple minutes to settle in, it seems like. All right. Okay. Here we are talking about niching, multiple different kinds of clients. We'll let folks trickle in. We have right around 1,000 people, or 1,100 people that were interested in this topic. So we'll give them a couple moments. If I'm coming through okay, looks like we have a couple people here live. Will you like this video or give me a thumbs up of some kind just to make sure you can see and hear me okay? I would so appreciate that. And the benefit of you being here live is that you get to interact, ask questions, get feedback. Niching is one of those topics that you're like told to do. Thank you for those likes. Okay, we're coming through okay. Something you're told to do, but no one really tells you how, especially if you don't have this like automatic single niche. And so I want to support you in that process. So like I said, if you're here, if you're live, please feel free to interact as I ask questions and get feedback on this process. If it's your first time joining us, if you've never seen my face before or my lovely guest room where all of this happens, my name is Anna Walker. I'm really, really happy that you're here. This group just hit 5,000 members last week, and it is my honor to get to hang out in this community. I started it a while ago, and it is just one of the coolest groups of therapists out there, if you ask me. Everything we do here inside of the group, everything that I'm going to be supporting you in, directing you to, offering resources around, is helping you market your practice in a way that isn't just effective, because I believe you deserve to get booked out doing what you love, and being a private pay clinician that builds the business that they want, but that is also authentic to the work that you do. I know that sometimes the marketing advice you can run into out there feels out of alignment with you for whatever reason. And we are anti-slimy, anti-salesy, anti-doesn't feel right to me inside of this group. So it's about helping you market yourself in a way that ultimately you can feel really proud of. And that aligns to, how you want to be known and the practice you want to build. So really, really happy that you're here. We're talking about the formal name of this event is how to market to different kinds of clients without being a generalist. This is something I have supported countless clinicians in since I started working with therapists, because the work that you do is heavy, right? The work that you do is heavy, and sometimes you don't want all heavy. Sometimes you're trained in multiple different areas and you want to be able to dive in and do those things even if they don't seem to all match up. And so this idea of picking a niche or profile your ideal client and market to them isn't always that cut and dry. But at the same time, you likely realize, and we can touch on the value, but you likely realize why it's important to be niched. If you're here, it's likely because you're interested in increasing your private pay caseload, dropping some panels or launching a practice to start with that is private pay. And one of the really critical pieces to doing that is being seen as an expert and having a clear niche. So how do we kind of reconcile these two things, right? How do you get to do work that you love to do while also being clear and focused and niched in your marketing? That's the process I'm going to be walking you through. Today is the same process I've helped my own one-on-one clients and my students go through as well. As we get started, like I said, you're here live. You get to benefit from this. Will you share with me in the comments what are some of the different kinds of ideal clients you love to work with? I want to help. Let's use real life examples as part of this. What are a couple? Give me like 2 to 3 either different niches or different specialties or different client types you love to work with that you're having a hard time sort of grouping together or marketing to. I would love to hear from you. So I'll give you a quick minute to share a couple examples. And if no one drops any in, then I have some from client work that I've done, but I would love to be able to give some real life advice here. Okay, teens and young adults, sure. So those can feel a little bit different. Teens, sometimes the parents making the decision. Young adults is they're leading into this, this new phase of life. People pleasers and perfectionists, substance abuse, perinatal, and EMDR. Okay, yeah, okay. Same as, okay. So Angel, it looks like Selena does the same work. Adults who have been abused as children, women with anxiety and depression, moms struggling with parents, college-age women. Okay. Radical feminist young adults of all genders. Wow, lots of good things in here. Couples and anxiety. Okay, parents struggling with anxiety around parenting neurodivergent kids and also caregivers for someone with dementia. Okay, those are two really specific areas. Anxiety and grief, relationship issues, codependency, couples anxiety. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for these examples. We'll revisit these as we go through this process together. Christian women, EMDR, performance anxiety, upcoming event anxiety. Okay, thank you for sharing these with me. It's really good to sort of get our finger on the pulse of where you guys are thinking. So the reason that this is important, and you're here because you're interested in this in this concept, but what's really important here is that if you are interested in attracting a certain type of client, we need to market to that client. But if you're disjointed in your marketing, and if your niches or specialty areas or focus areas are disjointed, then your marketing can end up feeling that way too. So I like to use the example of, imagine you wanted to, actually someone just dropped couples and anxiety, okay? If all you're doing is just marketing to couples and people with anxiety, the examples you can use in your marketing, the depth of understanding you can portray, there's not a lot of overlap between those two. And so your marketing can end up being kind of watered down. An anxious person is second guessing themselves all the time, like, dealing with somatic issues related to their sleep and their stomach. They are, laying awake at night wondering why their life feels completely out of control. Couples are fighting all the time. Maybe there's been infidelity. They, don't sleep in the same bed anymore. The challenge is here, there's just not a lot of overlap. And so this process I'm going to walk you through is going to basically be bringing the groups of clients that you love together and forming that overlap, because that's where your marketing can be grounded in. I hope that makes sense to you. So, awesome. Some other great ones coming through as well. Christian counseling, trauma, bereavement. Okay, excellent. So the very first thing that's important, and some of you have already explored this, is naming these different groups of clients you want to work with. I call it bucketing or segmenting. So the kind of sweet spot that I have found be useful for clinicians is settling between 2 and 4 different, I call them either focus areas or specialties. So these are the things that you do. These are maybe the clients that you serve. So sometimes a focus area is a problem or a challenge. So it might be anxiety, grief, and disordered eating. Maybe those are your focus areas. These are the things. These are the things that you love to do, that maybe we're having a hard time finding that overlap between, but the type of work you love to do. So some examples in here: couples and anxiety, relationship issues and codependency, anxiety, grief, Christian women, so faith-based, EMDR, those would be examples of specialty areas. So the very first step is just naming these things, which a lot of you have started to do, but really landing on 2 to 4, so we'll average 3, 2 to 4 specialty areas that encapsulate the work that you love to do. So as I mentioned, sometimes they're problems, sometimes they're anxiety, grief, and trauma. Sometimes they're types of clients. Someone shared teens and young adults. Sometimes those are your specialty areas. You specialize in working with teens. You specialize in working with adults. Sometimes it's methods or approaches. There's a little bit more nuance required for that, but maybe it is EMDR, brain spotting, and somatic experiencing, or something like that. Obviously, we want these focus areas to be relevant to your client. So if someone were to visit your website or read something related to your marketing or hearing about you, what are 3, 2 to 4 items that would help them identify that you could potentially be the therapist for them? So as you think about that, I'm curious, you guys have already dropped some good ones in, but give me 2 to 4 groups. Lindsay, cancer survivors, anxiety, grief. Okay, excellent. Chronic pain, trauma, perfectionistic tendencies, and anxiety. So chronic pain, trauma, anxiety. These are great. These are great examples of specialties or focus areas. These are the things that your ideal client would be like, oh wow, you specialize in that? You sound like you might be the one for me. Okay, so and we'll handle the overlap in a minute. Does anyone else have examples of focus areas as you think of kind of those 2 to 4 sweet spots that you want to be focusing in on? Anyone else? Okay, those are some really great examples. So this is the first step. It's doing this exploration. So rather than we've all visited a therapy website before where you go to the services tab or it's on their about page or something, and it's like a list of like 15 things they can help with. Do they feel like an expert to you in any one of those things when it's 15 of them? The reason that we're choosing these is because we don't want to dilute your expertise by just, we know that you could support so many different challenges. But what does your ideal client struggle with? Or what might your ideal client resonate with that's focused and that feels like we're taking care and really accommodating those big groups that you ultimately want to be attracting? So rather than diluting our expertise, we're refining it and putting it into these 3 segments. Family, addiction, trauma. Life transitions, anxiety, depression. Ecotherapy, soul collage, accelerated resolution therapy. Great, so that's an example of modalities. Anxiety, trauma, self-esteem, and immigrants. I think that might be Tanvi. Trauma, attachment, Christian counseling. Excellent. Okay, these are really, really wonderful examples. So this is the very first step is identifying how we can sort of group these clients. What are the different types that you want to be attracting? Then this is where the magic happens. Now we start to identify what I call, and if you are a client of mine or have been in my world, you know this language, a red thread. What ties all of these client types together? What ties all of these specialties or focus areas together? What's the common theme here? Now I'll guide you through a couple of different types of red thread you can be thinking about, but 2 questions I want you to think of. Number 1, when you reflect on the most productive, the most fulfilling, the most exciting, like best client relationships you've ever had, what is common between those? Regardless of the problem they came in with, regardless of any one specific criteria, what was common across all of those kinds of things? So that's one way you can sort of begin to explore this idea of a red thread. And number 2, a really interesting question to ask yourself, what do I want to be a destination for? If someone thinks of Anna Walker's therapy practice, what do I hope they think of that as a destination for? I'm curious if any of you have answers to that you'd be willing to drop into the chat. But those 2 questions again are, what is the common theme between the best client relationships you've ever had, and what do I want to be a destination for? Michelle, you gave a great word here, empowerment. Okay, what an interesting idea. I specialize in empowering my clients. It's an interesting red thread. Anyone else, as you think about it? Love these questions. Creativity and creative self-expression. If creativity and creative self-expression are things that your ideal client really, really values, regardless of if they're coming in for any specific problem, that's going to speak to them. Anyone else with be a place for emotional growth and support? Yeah. Relational therapy. Yeah. All right, you guys are already hitting on a couple of the different types. So there are 3 sort of 3 types of red threads that I've seen be effective for my clients. Now, the first one is a quality of your client. Some folks specialize in working with people pleasers and perfectionists, or like super type A goal-oriented people, healers and feelers. A quality of your client. Sometimes that can be something that ties your specialty areas and your focus areas together as a red thread. So all of a sudden you become a destination for the perfectionist, for the people pleaser, for the type A. Sometimes that can be a really great red thread. So a couple of you have offered some good ideas around that. So that's thinking about your client. Sometimes it's related to your approach. So who just shared the creativity? Tiara, you shared creativity and creative self-expression. That's a little bit more about your approach and what you offer. I'm right now writing website copy for a client where it's a different kind of therapy experience. And that's what her ideal client is looking for. And so even though she specializes in a couple of disparate areas, that's how we're tying things together, and that's how she's going to be known. Is if you've been to therapy before and it hasn't given you what you wanted, this is a different type of experience. And that ties her together, and that makes her a destination, regardless of her different niches within that. So that's an example of an approach related thing. Um, Emotional regulation, better relationships, shifted sense of identity. There, yes, Angel, that's an interesting one for teens and young adults, right? Because they are in this very identity forming phase of life. So you're helping them step into who they're becoming. That's an interesting idea. So Jenna, internal conflict. So that's an interesting one. Cherie, hope. Heather, I think for people pleasing and perfectionism, the red thread is trauma and self esteem. You want to be a destination for feeling free to be yourself. There you go. And then the last type of red thread that I've seen be effective is an overarching sort of challenge or problem. So some folks do specialize in trauma. And then it's under that we have some really specific specialties. For some folks, it is, identity development or stepping into who you're becoming. And then under that, it's different age groups. Angel, that could be a really interesting thing for you to consider. But the idea here is that we're identifying a theme. We're identifying what you want to be known for as a practice, regardless of the problem your ideal client is coming in with. How could you describe the work that you do? What ties all of these together? I'll stop here. Is this making sense to you? Is this helpful? Are these good prompts to be thinking on for those folks that came in struggling with bringing all these things together? Hopefully. Okay. So those two questions again that are important to reflect on is what is common across my types of clients, and then what do I want to be a destination for? So the types of those red threads again that I've seen be helpful is a quality of your client, so a certain type of person you love to work with, your approach, or an overarching challenge or problem. Those are kind of the three different types of red thread I've seen be effective. I was going to share one more thing about red threads, and it's escaping me at this exact moment, and I do these live, so you get to see me thinking on the fly. I will certainly come back to it if I need to. Okay, good. These are some good prompts here. So Casey, you're leading me beautifully into sort of the next section of this, which is now what do we do with this? So Casey asked, I assume the red thread is the first thing people see on the homepage. So your red thread all of a sudden can become the main theme of your practice. So places like your homepage and your about page are where we can speak to that overarching theme. This idea of a different kind of therapy experience. We can use that and use that as sort of the theme of our home and about pages. But then what's really important if you're going to be successful at marketing to different kinds of clients is giving each of those different clients some space and some real estate on your website. So if you specialize in EMDR and faith-based counseling, there should be a page where you get so super specific about that type of ideal client there. Your red thread is what can be that overarching message where, yes, like the top of your home page and the message of your about page, you can speak to all of these things, but then give these different types of clients some room and some dedicated space on your site. We call those specialty pages here in this group. There should be a specialty page dedicated to the different types of clients that you want to serve. I call them flavors of ideal clients sometimes. You should have a different specialty page for all the different flavors of clients you want to be bringing in. If your red thread is, working with high achievers and people pleasers, then that is what we can be speaking to at a high level. And then there should be a page dedicated to anxiety in high achievers and people pleasers. And what does trauma show up like for high achievers and people pleasers? So those different focus areas or specialties need some dedicated space on your website so that when your ideal client lands on your website, they see that theme and they automatically lock into that theme, but then they realize that you're actually an expert in the thing that they are experiencing. So it kind of guides them deeper into your website, and that is your opportunity to show them your deep understanding of what it is that they're experiencing, and how exactly you can help them. So the challenges of a teen versus the challenges of a young adult, we don't have to try and do both all the time. We can have a teen page and we can have a young adult page where we get really clear about that. So I hope that's helpful for you. So that is sort of the next step. So after we segment these into groups and we figure out your different types, then we tie them together with a red thread, and we apply that red thread to things like your homepage and your about page. And then we give some dedicated room in your website and, quite frankly, in your marketing to each of those different flavors of client. Here's another example of how you might do that. I've seen clients be incredibly effective rather than writing a Psychology Today profile or a directory profile that communicates their red thread. Sometimes they'll write one specific to their specialties. So they'll have a couple different versions of their Psychology Today profile, because that's what helps them be incredibly specific, where you get to talk directly to your trauma client. And we don't have to worry about the other kind of flavors of client that you serve. So that can be another really effective thing to keep in mind. As you move forward from this, so we have a website that is communicating the red thread, giving our focus areas some room. Then you can start to use these different focus areas to guide your marketing. If you blog, we do blog posts specific to these focus areas. If you're on social media, then you can ask yourself, what would my trauma client really need to hear right now? What would my young adult client really be interested in? What would my accelerated resolution therapy client need to hear? This can start to guide your marketing. But it's all done under this red thread and under this theme that still helps you really feel like you're a destination for something and gives you a really clear main message about who you are as a practice. I specialize in supporting high achievers and people pleasers with anxiety, grief, and trauma. You get to do a whole bunch of different kinds of work, anxiety, grief, trauma, but it's attracting this type of client you love to work with, and you seem like a focused destination for that person. If someone identifies as a high achiever or people pleaser, of course they're going to want to work with you because you understand the nuances of what it is that they're dealing with. This is where the power of that red thread can come in. Eric, you noted, I'm not sure how to better narrow down my niche. I saw you note a couple things up above, but feel free to offer a little bit more context around that, because I would love to address some questions you have related to this. Now, please know that if you need support in this process, this is exactly what we do inside of my program, Confident Copy. I have made some big decisions about Confident Copy in the last couple weeks, and we're actually going to be offering another round a lot sooner than we planned on. So a little bit later this spring, doors will be opening to Confident Copy. It's going to be getting an upgrade. It's going to be, I'm always working to improve my programs, but part of the Confident Copy process is figuring out what it is that you do, what your red thread is, what your niche is, how to put words to it. Because when you do that, everything else gets easier, right? This serves as the North Star for everything that you do. Once you know your focus areas and you know your red thread, then you feel confident telling people what it is that you do. You feel confident putting yourself out there in different marketing ways like blogging or social media, networking. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, Anna, yes, people pleasers and high achievers, send them to her. It starts to direct and clarify everything that you do. So this is part of that process. It's actually the very first part of the process. And then I guide you and support you through writing that website copy, through bringing that red thread to life, putting this in the format for Psychology Today, what to look for, all those kinds of things. So please know that support is available for you in an intimate community. If you're interested in this, there's absolutely no obligation, but I do absolutely suggest that you sign up for the wait list so you can receive not only a discount, but be the first to know when doors are open. walkerstrategyco.com/cc, the letter CC. You'll get first dibs on doors opening again for Confident Copy. Okay. Grace, can you comment on how to apply this to a group practice? Grace, I'm really glad you asked that because this process can still apply to a group practice. Sometimes your red thread or your theme has to be a bit more general, but Grace, ask yourself, what do I want my group practice to be known for? What do I want this to be a destination for? I have seen a group practice. I actually know of a group practice. I was a client at a group practice here in Nashville that is private pay only and specializes in working with women. And so it is a destination for women across the lifespan, all the different challenges. They have a number of different specialties and specialists on their team, but that's the theme. I'm trying to think of some other ideas off the top of my head, but really, Grace, looking at the work that you do and the clients that you want to be attracting, ask yourself what's the overarching theme here. Therapy for the entire family if you work with folks across the lifespan, children through adults. kind of ask yourself, like, what can tie all of the work that my clinicians love to do together? And it's okay if it's a little bit general, because the beauty of a group practice is that you have deep expertise in a number of different areas. But what can sort of what can the umbrella be over all of those things? Okay, so Eric, I started pretty broad, specializing in providing trauma therapy to nerds and geeks. It was crickets for a year, so I've expanded to general trauma and PTSD. I hear messages from both sides about narrowing down. Okay, so you started pretty narrow, specializing in providing trauma. So in my experience, kind of the narrowness or the broadness of your niche isn't nearly as important as how clearly you communicate it. Trauma therapy to nerds and geeks, two things I would ask you is, do your nerds and geeks know they have trauma? It's one of the biggest questions I ask trauma clinicians specifically. A lot of people have trauma, and it's only through the work of therapy that they realize that. Trauma can actually sometimes be off-putting. So that would be my first thing. And then nerds and geeks. Certainly, I imagine there are folks that identify with that term, but you could be risking the possibility of isolating people that don't automatically resonate with that. And so this idea of maybe leveling up was an interesting one. I think you could either level up and sort of take away that nerds and geeks, which it sounds like you did, or ask yourself, is this what they actually are coming in wanting support with? Or is it something else? Is trauma only a part of it? Those would be some questions to explore. But this is not like a hard and fast, like formulaic process, right? That's the beauty of this. You get to decide this, but you can do it with some of this guidance and actually see really meaningful results and be able to keep that variety in your caseload. So I hope that's helpful for you, Eric. Okay. I hope this has been helpful for you, friends. I'm not seeing any additional comments come through, although I think Facebook is also mad that I have as many tabs open as I do, so there could be a little bit of a lag. I don't know. But even if you're catching the replay and you have some questions, you are welcome to drop them in, and I will do my best to revisit this. But this is a process that like I said, no one talks about how to niche. And this has been a process that I've seen be really, really fruitful for people, and for clinicians that want to maintain that variety and don't just want to pigeonhole themselves into a specific area, but still want to be presenting themselves as that premium private pay practice, and command those full fees, and position themselves as the experts that they are, even if they're experts in a number of different areas. So, friends, thanks for joining me. Thanks for interacting with me and offering some examples here. I hope this has been useful for you. Like I said, if you're interested in support around this, walkerstrategyco.com/cc. You'll be the first to know when the wait list is notified of the next round of Confident Copy. We just wrapped up this round this week, and I've watched a couple of the students go through this process, and it be really, really fruitful for them. So thanks for being here. I appreciate each of you, and I'll see you next time.